A man with few friends or no circle at all, that's someone you don't want to cross. He's learned through tough experiences that quality always beats quantity. He doesn't need a crowd to feel strong. His power comes from within. While others chase after validation, he chooses to walk alone. He's seen the fake friendships, the drama, and the betrayals. And he's cut all of it out. Now he stands untouched, at peace. He doesn't need anyone to make him whole.
Good afternoon. As you all know, Travis has been working extremely hard up in Tennessee and North Carolina, and the videos speak for themselves. However, I thought we would take a few minutes to go through and speak with Travis and let me ask him some questions as to what was really going on and what his interpretations are of all the elements of the problems that he saw. So we're going to get into it right now. So just as a recap, I want everybody to be aware of a handful of points. Travis was in Western North Carolina and Appalachia and Tennessee. Some of those videos that you saw along the river, the water had risen 27 feet above its natural level. That's, so you understand, that's 3 stories of a building. There were 400 roads that were closed in Western North Carolina. There were over 460,000 people that had power outages. 57,000 people applied for FEMA assistance. And Travis, if I'm not mistaken, you told me that it takes over 1 year for a body to be identified when the entire body obviously isn't there and it's just body parts. Is that correct?
Well, it could take up to 1 year. When I researched the FBI's process of verifying DNA from remains, it said it could take up to a few days, few weeks, few months, or even years. So I don't think that they're counting any of the recovery, any of the recovery portion of this catastrophe in the official numbers at all, because it's just now, as of today, I believe, 8 weeks. Now, when I go out there, Mitch, most of the SAR teams and the people that are doing recoveries assume that because they're being told that it's taking 6 to 8 weeks. So if the recovery didn't happen until a week after the rescue ended, then they will not have the results back in time for that Congress meeting that they just had, suggesting that there is only 102 total deaths in North Carolina.
Well, okay, so it's interesting that you went down that road, because here's my next question. So we know, as seen in the Consumer Price Index, the outstanding bonds, inflation, and intentional omission, that the government statistics are created to paint a false illusion, often somewhat corrected and notoriously corrected after the fact. So guessing at the total dead and total missing is completely meaningless. Would you agree?
I mean, it's not just it's not meaningless, Mitch. It's I wish it was meaningless, because I could take meaningless. What is happening, in my opinion, is straight evil. It's an absolute abomination. It feels like they're doing it on purpose. It feels like it's a war with the citizens. So if it was nothing, it wouldn't have such a devastating impact on the locals.
Do you know how many immigrants were in the area?
I researched how many illegal, undocumented immigrants were in North Carolina as of 2023, and the information that I read was 375,000.
Okay, and how many homeless people were in the area?
Well, that was a little bit harder. Again, older information. As far as just Asheville, one city, most people know Asheville. I read reports that there was over 700 undocumented homeless people in just Asheville.
So we come back to the first question. If FEMA isn't telling the truth and the numbers don't exist, then how can anything that is coming out of their mouth be accurate?
I mean, it's not accurate, and that's the frustration. You know, I've talked to some of the people in southern Asheville that are still in love with the government. And I mean, I sit back and I can't understand how some of those people, even that witness just a small portion of this, I mean, they could just drive about 2 hours north and find this out for themselves, but they choose not to, because they still have this illusion of safety from FEMA, which is it's an absolute catastrophe. I mean, imagine being some of these mountain towns or even in areas of Asheville, and having your neighbors say like, hey, you're fine. FEMA came in, they did everything that they were supposed to do. And you're crazy if you think that the government is out to get you. And that's false. There is no indication of FEMA. There's a presence. There's almost a feeling of a dark cloud that's over this entire area. And that dark cloud is FEMA. It feels like FEMA is just a pack of wolves that are hiding in the trees, waiting for people to give up hope so that they can scoop in. And I'll say, in my opinion, start buying this land.
Well, to be determined as to what they do with the land, or they just simply take it, as we think is what's going to happen, and certainly on some of the people, because you've got it on video. So let's switch gears for a second, because the way that I've got this lined up ends to a conclusion. So I asked you several days ago, how many people did you run into that have PTSD? And your comment was?
I mean, I think the question is, how many people do not have PTSD at this moment? Because we were able to go into the most the most impacted, most devastated areas. So we wanted to go front of the line. We wanted to see the darkest of the dark and really try to stay objective, try not to be sensational, let other people tell their story. But everyone has PTSD, man. And there are some people that lost their entire family that got swept away right in front of them, grandkids and children. This one person particularly that I am holding on to help motivate me to get up and keep working on this. He has such strong PTSD that he can't accept that they have already found his family. And so he's out there still begging these search and rescue teams. You should be FEMA, should be government intervention to help the mental health of this man that's broken. But he can't accept it. This man is so broken and so far away from God that he's shouldering everything himself. And I mean, there's levels of PTSD, Mitch, and I think, the full spectrum.
So I did some research just for the benefit of all of our viewers, and we'll post that. And it's about PTSD and how traumatic it is. And it was actually written by the fire marshal in Las Vegas after the shooting event there. And we'll post that document because it's so well written. Even FEMA and the government paid attention to what this guy was saying. And by the way, FEMA is actually supposed to, if you go to their website, offer assistance under such issues. So far as we have seen, nothing. So we'll put that document below this video. You put a list of contacts together, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that everybody that you have come in contact with and has done a video with you and has also raised money to help the SAR teams, that contact list will also be below this video. Let's switch gears and talk about some of the debris for a second. A lot of the debris was in piles after being soaked in the river, and there is no doubt that the river was full of contaminants. What those contaminants were and the breakdown of those contaminants, that list is not available as far as we know. We've been looking, we can't find it. When mulch is made from the debris, something I know a little bit about, does that mulch end up in people's gardens? They're hauling these trucks off. You saw, everybody on our viewership saw those trucks being moved after the debris was being mulched up. The question is, where's that mulch going? I hope that it's going to a dump, and the dump is clay lined, because until the contaminants are determined, that's a real problem. You don't want to start spreading that crap all over North Carolina.
And Mitch, if I may go back to that just real quick, and there are many mulch operations. We were in one mulch operations, and there's the abomination, the response, the care for health and life. That place has been abandoned. I mean, these construction workers are working this mulch in Tennessee, Irwin, that plastic factory. When we were there, each of us had the dust particles stuck on the top of the roofs of our mouth, and we were only there for 30 minutes. And they got workers in these piles of dust, what I believe is toxic dust, potentially human remains, and they have mulch operations going on. And it's just, and with FEMA acknowledging that they didn't specify Irwin, but they specified areas in Asheville where FEMA's coming in, turning this debris into mulch piles. And again, I'm wondering, What safety procedures do they have in place? Do the construction workers understand that the potential for hazardous material? And if they're sending, I mean, I can't imagine. At this point, nothing is impossible, Mitch. But if they're sending contaminated mulch spread out through Asheville into gardens, it's a national emergency. And that's just one aspect of something that raised red flags that we discovered on this trip, and there were many.
Well, plus on those videos, you saw construction workers, you saw dump truck drivers, you saw tractor drivers, front end loader drivers. Not one of them was wearing a mask. So the question is, inside of their contracts with the government, were they told that there's potential hazardous material there? And
Great
we've
question.
seen the photos, because I did some more research on that. I've seen the photos of the fish in the dead sludge. Well, fish don't die, even if it's kind of muddy, unless there's something else in that water. And there were hundreds of them. So the real question is, were these people warned? And by the way, we, the United States, saw this on September 11th. Look at the people that got sick after those towers came down due to all the contaminants. Okay.
It's bad.
Well, we've seen it before. The question is, did anybody learn their lesson? I highly doubt it. We'll see what comes up in the next 60 days. So in a video that you and I did, I mentioned that FEMA has on their website that they are to be there before, during, and after an event. I also mentioned that based on what I saw at that time from the photos that I saw, and knowing about the logistics and construction, I estimated it would take an army of 50,000 citizens in order to clean up the mess. Did FEMA ever use such a method in this event?
We couldn't find FEMA anywhere. And when we went up in the helicopter, these both SAR teams, independently of each other, showed me enough respect and love to get me up in the helicopters and to show me, Travis, we're going to prove to you beyond a shadow of doubt that not only is FEMA not here, they haven't been here from the very beginning. You can understand, some people have commented, Mitch, that they could understand FEMA not getting there immediately, a week or two. We get it. I've seen that in Hurricane Harvey. But the fact that we're on week 8 now and they still have massive sections of railroad in the middle of rivers that are obviously full of contamination themselves, that's flowing down river, it's an absolute abomination. There are multiple areas that are absolutely devastated without anyone there. There's some areas that are still unacceptable, and there's non-disclosure signs, so I can't get into this. But there was areas that are not accessible that still have 4 or 5 houses underwater, 6, 7 cars that are smashed up with potential more remains. And they can't even get to these areas. There's no FEMA. There's no FEMA, Mitch, and the only signs of FEMA are dark and scary. And these mountain towns, these mountain people that are halfway militia and independent of government, some of them have chased off FEMA completely. But unfortunately, those people themselves put themselves in harm's way, because most of the people that are chasing off FEMA are in areas that I believe are like Little Germany area, high areas of contamination. You can smell it in the air. Some of these places is overwhelmed with an odor of rust, an odor of chemicals, and you look around, everything is completely destroyed, except for the spirit and the hope of these people. And it's very scary, Mitch, because I don't have the heart to tell them that they need to leave.
Well, they're not supposed to have to leave, right? That's the underlying point of this.
That's right.
So do you believe that FEMA does not want the involvement of the citizens because FEMA believes it makes them look inept?
I have a theory on why that might happen. I don't believe that they're doing it to make themselves appear inept. It appears that they're just sitting on the outside, letting things get worse, more contaminated, more toxic. So there's no other choice but to force the buyout. I'm also worried that the National Guard is going to be called in once the public starts understanding how toxic this is. But here's the point that I'd like to make. Why? Because I don't know any other conclusion to come to. In order to recover some of these missing, There's not full bodies. There's parts. The community celebrates an arm, a leg, a hand. Everyone celebrates. That's how dark it is out there. And, you know, successful story of James, Sierra 55. They found the human remains, sent it off to DNA. Absolutely magic. But I want to explain what it took them to do that. And this is just one person providing one family with closure, one family with the ability to access potential life insurance and not have to go through such hell through probate court and things. It took this team, the Sierra 55, okay, in order to start excavation, because some of these parts now, this is the hard work, are 20 feet under, 30 feet under, but the cadaver dogs can still sense it. In order for them to dig, they have to have 2 dog teams hit. So, and by the way, cadaver dogs in these hard hit areas are almost impossible to come by. So the requirement is 2 plus a 3rd confirmation of LiDAR. Okay, so you have a triple confirmation, then you need permits, and then you need to get an excavator out there to dig. And I want to tell you, Mitch, that they did all of those things. Sierra 55 did all of those things. But I want everyone to remember that these guys are private citizens. The fact that they maintain this level of tenacity throughout these overwhelming obstacles, that's an American tale of tenacity. And the whole time I'm thinking, why the heck isn't FEMA here supporting them? Where's FEMA's dogs? Where's FEMA's technology? Where's the support, the after part of this? It's non-existent, Mitch. There's private citizens in groups. They're the only ones holding these communities together. And I'll be bold enough to say, if it wasn't for some communities, if it wasn't for these SAR teams supporting these communities, they would have already imploded.
Well, I want to go off script here just for a second on FEMA. If our viewers go to the FEMA website, FEMA.gov, you will see that FEMA really is to be a coordination body. They have multiple arms underneath FEMA's branch, but the reality is they are to be a coordination body. All your videos doesn't have FEMA. People have said they've never seen FEMA there. The point of the matter is, when I said 50,000 citizens, that is pretty damn close to what I've seen necessary to begin to straighten this mess out quickly. Well, if FEMA didn't make that arrangement for those people, even as citizens, military, call it whatever you want. You saw the scope. I mean, I saw the scope. I saw the tractors in the middle of the river. Those tractors look like Tinker Toys. And these are big, heavy front end loaders. This is big material, big machines. Well, if you need 50,000 people at a minimum, and FEMA didn't make that coordination, then clearly FEMA failed in its mission before, during, and after. It's that simple. And then we'll get into FEMA as far as what they're doing on the land and the idea of the flood zones in a few minutes. So now that you've seen the devastation of what this has caused, do you believe that in addition to personal preparedness, this event and everything you recorded in these videos is 100% irrefutable proof that communities should be prepared for any type of flood, fire, earthquake, tornado, and just pray that it never happens?
Well, I have a long answer here, because the reality is, when you go back there, and I want to take you back there, Mitch, I'm going to still convince you to get back there. You just have to go, because there's no way to put this into words. There's no, FEMA's useless, man. I mean, FEMA's an illusion that the government is there to protect you. I'm telling you, I don't know this for sure. It is speculation, but my sense is that they're sitting back, and they're waiting, and they're going to take over these people's land. So are they useless to us as the Americans? Yeah, undisputably. But are they useless to whoever is pulling the strings that potentially wants this land? No, they're doing a wonderful job at massacring people to purchase land. And so, to answer your question, community, even though you can't prepare for this level of devastation, the community, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, the community is everything. There's zero racism. There's zero hate. You get to see the true nature of most people. There's still people that believe in the government and they love them. Somehow it's actually a little bit shocking, but everyone that I dealt with, Mitch, was there for the community, was there because they choose to love instead of profit. They're choosing people over money. And so it's the community is the only one that's going to be there for you. So I would encourage anyone that's listening to here, go to your bingo night at your HOA or whatever is at their car wash, whatever is at the HOA, and you start meeting your neighbors, because your neighbors are the only ones that are going to be there for you when it matters. And you never know, if you're listening to this, you may become a leader in that community, because I got to tell you guys, based on what I saw, they're not coming for you. The only ones that are going to hold you together, and they can't even do this, it's an impossible task, are SAR team members, community members. They're the only ones that are going to be there and say, hey, is there someone missing? And you can say, yes, my family's missing. They will tell you, we will find them for you no matter what. It's the citizens in the community that's saying that. It's not the government. It's not the people that we're paying. It's not the people's jobs that are designated to do that to the recovery, the after part of the recovery. They're not there. They are destroying communities, not building them stronger, Mitch. So if it wasn't for some of these communities, okay, they would no longer be in existence. They would have given up. These people are barely hanging on. They got to witness potential roads being built over dead bodies, mulch with human remains and toxicity, a government that's not there. These people in these communities, they're not doing well. They're not doing well at all.
So to put an exclamation point behind this issue, would you agree that preparedness is the best insurance, especially when the insurance is the government and not available?
It's the only insurance. I mean, the love of good people, the love is the only thing that is operating effectively in those areas.
So before you went to Tennessee and North Carolina, there were a few comments that we always discuss real estate tax because it's the root of trillions of dollars in overvaluation and over $450 billion in actual tax hardcore cash taken from mom and pop annually. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the taxing entities in North Carolina that were there at one time and now are demanding that the taxes still be paid, even though the houses are gone, people are dead, land has been taken? In reality, maybe temporary or not, doesn't matter, but land has been taken by the government, and yet those taxes are still being demanded to be paid. Do you agree that this is one more huge, irrefutable reason why the real estate taxes need to be eliminated straight across the nation? Because this is the root of all evil.
Here, it's all connected. It's all connected, and let me explain. Okay, so the SAR team in North Carolina, we were stationed at Yancey Volunteer Fire Department. A fire department is a municipality. The fire department is funded predominantly by property tax. They shut down the SAR team. About five and a half weeks in, they shut down the SAR team, and that gutted the community that they were helping. And my question was why would you do that to your constituents? Why would you do that to the taxpayers? Why would you shut down a SAR team that is uplifting the community? They were holding the community up. The municipality came in and made them leave that community. It absolutely was, it was devastating. So not only can we never own anything, not only that, they're not even doing their jobs. The money that's going to this illusion of safety, it's not, there's no safety whatsoever. And so, you know, you look at that, Mitch, and then you start to realize, like, you know, the state will have the ability, if some of these people that have lost everything, they no longer have any money, if they don't pay their property taxes, oh, and guess what? What's the month right now? Is it almost December? So that means that almost property taxes are due. If some of these people don't pay their taxes, the state can sell those levies, can sell those taxes to a pack of wolves like FEMA or these institutional investors, and they will kick them out of their property, and then we'll foreclose, and then we'll take that back. Property taxes, I don't want to say it's the root of all evil, Mitch, but it's not a good thing, brother. And the people that are supposed to be doing their jobs with that tax money, They're just making things worse.
But in this case, the real estate taxes are being used as a sledgehammer against people who clearly don't have the money, don't have a home, barely have the land. And we're not saying that these other entities shouldn't be kept afloat. What we're saying is eliminate the real estate taxes in favor of a uniform state's sales tax. And in this particular case, when a taxing entity through the Central Appraisal District makes a demand on something that is financially impossible, that actually fills in the bucket of RICO, which we have said time and time again. This is pure evil. The real estate taxes, what I'm saying here is this is one more layer of the corruption clearly laid bare in front of the public through these videos. This is what is happening. This is unconscionable. And the government, be it the federal government, has to come in on the state and start slapping them around. If that's what's necessary, so be it. If the chief appraisers in those districts try to get that money, they should be prosecuted and put in jail. I don't know what the laws are in North Carolina, but I do know that they are breaking the laws. If you're violating USPAP, you're breaking the laws. It's a third-degree felony here in Texas. So let's just assume that it's still a third-degree felony in North Carolina for the sake of conversation. When somebody's making demand, give me my tax money or I will take your house. That does fall under RICO, never mind the fact that it's ungodly immoral. That's the point I want to get out in these videos. We're giving everybody one more layer of the corruption through these videos.
Mitch, I mean, some people's houses were already taken, sir. And, I go back to that man, not only was his house taken, his grandchildren were taken, his daughter was taken, his family was taken, his house was taken. And you mean to tell me that you're going to give him a tax bill, a property tax bill? And if he doesn't pay that tax bill, you're going to take this guy's land? That's the system that we're in right now, just so the viewers understand. So what you're seeing out in North Carolina, you're in Tennessee, you guys are seeing, in my opinion, proof positive. Greed, corruption, and fraud has embedded itself in America. And unless we come together as American citizens and we demand transparency and accountability, no one's safe. All of these people thought they were safe, man. No one's safe. I mean, this is an absolute national emergency. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, there's radioactive material, there's Geiger meters going off, there's young men having heart attacks, their face being swollen. This is a toxic waste dump. It looks like a war zone. And the only people that are supporting each other is the community. And this is week 8 now. As of today, it's week 8.
Yeah. So tell us about the people who took you in, a complete stranger with a camera.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so, when I went into this trip, it was very important that I explained to people I was an investigative cinematographer. And they're like, oh, my God, that sounds cool. What's an investigative cinematographer? Well, and I explained to them, I'm here to help you tell your story. And when I started saying that, people starting to realize that not only was I there to tell their story, but I was also willing to break my back and help and get dirty myself. There was no question. I mean, every single person took me in, even in the mountains, even in the high mountains, because they understood why I was there. And they were desperate, Mitch, for their story to be told. They were all had this sense of being forgotten. The SAR teams that we met as a community, they were broke. That's CR55 could not have found, this is from James's mouth, could not have found that man and provided relief to that community without our help from this channel. So overwhelming love with all of the evil cloud that's hovering over these mountains, that's being counteracted by overwhelming, pure selflessness and love from true Americans that are willing to step up and become a part of any community in America that is in need. These are true heroes that I met, and they welcomed me immediately in.
Tell everybody about the efforts spent by the SAR team to find Steve.
Yeah, I mean, and I talked about, a little bit about this, but I mean, again, double confirmation. It was actually triple confirmation, 2 dog teams. James was able to pay $2,000 that he got from donations from the videos that we were making to bring in the second SAR team. He flew the second SAR team in. It cost $2,000. That second SAR team went to the pile that he took me to, and that video should have already been released. Double confirmation. That took his own money from the donations of you to get that second hit. Then he had to call some military special forces guy that was also there on his own, helicopter pilots that had special technology and drones that were able to get up in the air and use technology that could pierce through the sediment and the mounds of dirt to kind of determine whether or not there's the potential for remains. But included in that software is also thermal software, but not for the heat. They're actually looking, instead of heat now, for colder areas. It has to go with organic material. It doesn't matter. But that got confirmed. So we had the triple confirmation, and then they have to file, this is the citizens, they have to file, James, the permits, because they needed permits in this particular area. And then, so they got all that done. Then they have to find someone that has excavators that's willing to use those machines, the heavy machines, to go into this very dangerous area. It's an island. It's literally an island that you have to cross into. And then they start digging up all the area, and they're sifting through all of the dirt, all of the debris for a finger. But what they understand, Mitch, is the power of the community stopping at nothing. And they've made comments like, oh, you guys are spending this much money for one body part. Those people that are saying that are absolute cowards. Those are the people that are going to run from helping you. So pay them no mind. There are people out here, Mitch, that are willing to do whatever it takes to provide just one person some relief, even if they don't know there's success. Sierra 55 SAR team, I mean, I've never met people, Americans, that I've wanted to be their family forever more than the SAR teams and the people that I met out there. What they're having to go through, you can't ask citizens to do that when we're paying our property taxes to an agency that's supposed to do it for us. And another thing, they got to hold on to that stuff. The SAR teams that were here on the first week, Mitch, second week, and some of them were young kids, they will always remember the victims. And the velocity was so strong that, you know, the people that they pulled out that were already passed away were not in, you know, good shape. Let's just say that. And so those images are stained in their minds, and there was breakdowns from the PTSD. And when someone breaks down and someone decompresses, man, and cries, it's a celebration because they're holding on to it, right, to survive. So it's a proud moment for a team when someone breaks down. I mean, that's the amount of love that's there. Everyone loves them and knows that, you know, that what they're holding on to. And, you know, when I went out there, when I broke, you know, it was on top of a pile that you know, this victim was in. This is the triple confirmation, but I was in a pile and I was looking around, and that's when it first hit me how impossible this was for civilians and how abandoned they really were. And then it's just so much stuff started hitting me at the same time. And I also started to realize how much these SAR teams, especially, and there's everyone that's volunteering is an amazing, but these SAR teams that are going around to community, they are shouldering so much guilt from the community, because I witnessed these SAR teams that are barely hanging on, and they won't admit this. They're so strong that some of these guys are absolutely amazing, but they are hurting. And I witnessed someone, I won't use any names, you know, he was ready to break down, it appeared to me. And I was so honored, right? I'm like, please, you know, let it out, man. And just as this person was about to let it out and decompress, someone from this community that they were helping ran around the corner, you know, jumping up and down. Oh my God, thank God you're here. We want to help, right? Just throwing their guilt on the SAR team. And this person just perked right up, right? Just shouldered it and went out to that person, gave them a hug, let them throw up their guilt on them because they were strong enough to take it. And that is how selfless these leaders and American heroes that are out there right now. If you guys want to know and you want to witness pure evil and pure good, go to Tennessee, go to North Carolina, and dig. And it won't take you very long, because I mean, I found people right away, but I have tenacity and I'm researching, right? I'm putting an effort in to figure this stuff out. Mitch, what's happening there, it's a full circle. Everything's connected. It's a full circle. If they had the money that they were supposed to have, and they were doing, and I'm talking the agencies, municipalities, and the government and the FEMA, if they were doing their jobs, then we wouldn't need these heroes to do what they're doing.
Government is paid to do the job. It's not paid to tell the citizens to do the job unless they set it up in advance, which clearly FEMA didn't do, because it takes at least 50,000 people in order to get in here and start making a big difference, and they're not there. So my next question is, how much money was raised from, speaking of Selfless, this network of viewers?
The best that I could say, so as far as the real estate mindset GoFundMe, outside of the real estate mindset community, I don't know exactly how much money was generated. I don't know exactly how they're spending the money, but what I can tell you is in our GoFundMe, not only did I do an audit, which is going to be linked in every single video. You guys can literally hit that link. You can audit it. I did it exhibit form. I didn't have to do the exhibits. I thought it was a great story to tell, though, because I just like doing exhibits. But as best as I can tell, Mitch, around $70,000 was generated for about 6 different teams, not counting the side-by-sides, Zodiacs with engines, discounts on vehicles, overwhelming love, overwhelming support. They told me that right before I came was the ultimate deflation, which means they were in the ultimate need. You know, the volunteers were leaving, the funding had stopped. So when Real Estate Mindset came into town, everyone we touched, a breath of life and love and support, both financially and volunteers, was breathed into those operations. And as a result of that, they were successful. They helped change people's lives. I have other stories where, you know, I can't get into, but man, you know, some of those people, those SAR teams, I mean, they're holding on, man. They're holding on to so much pain from what they've seen. And I worry that some of them are not letting it out in a way that they need to. You know, from what little I saw, it's taken me at least a couple of days to decompress myself, and I didn't see some of the early day carnage.
Did you receive the water contamination reports back yet?
So the water contamination reports, which was part of the donations into the GoFundMe account, have not been received yet. It's a 10-day turnaround time. It's lab results. It's certified results. We should be getting that probably the week of Thanksgiving sometime.
Okay, I want to read a paragraph, and you'll see where I'm going in a minute. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, reported that only 0.8%, that's less than 1%, of the households in disaster-declared counties in North Carolina held FEMA insurance policies. Environmental and insurance experts stated that the lack of flooding insurance would significantly slow the rebuilding and repairing of flood-damaged properties, as well as the recovery of entire communities. Lack of flooding insurance can also force many of the impacted to deplete their savings or abandon their homes entirely. Experts stated that low-income housing communities would suffer the worst due to lacking substantial savings and potentially not qualifying for credit from banks or from the Small Business Administration disaster loans. It goes on, but many communities and property owners appeal and contest flood risk findings by FEMA, not wanting to make the required protections or pay for insurance, leading to maps and underestimated risk. Well, to make a long story short, what Travis showed you in one of those videos, and we'll post this paragraph up so you can read it on your own. But the bottom line is that FEMA came out 2 days ago and said, yeah, our bad. We misjudged the guidelines as to where the flood zone actually is. And that's why all of a sudden you've got rivers that were 200 feet wide that are now a mile wide And that's why FEMA has taken over one person's land to make a road with no contract, no obligation, nothing in writing. So the point of the matter is FEMA is standing there saying, yeah, our bad. But then they come out and say, and you have to understand the connection here. They just gave cover to the insurance companies because the insurance companies were going to say, well, hey, this is a flood. It's got nothing to do with us. We're not going to pay. Well, except that the flood wouldn't have happened but for the hurricane. Now, just like under the real estate tax, when mom and pop who don't have the money are expected somehow to go and fight a legal battle, how in the world are mom and pop under this condition going to go and fight a legal battle against FEMA, who needs to be a co-defendant, and against the state? So it's the FEMA, it's state. Why? Because the municipality themselves also demarked where those flood zones are. When you say, sorry, we're going to move the road over and we're going to move the river over because the river moved itself over through this problem, you understand? This is an impossibility. FEMA screwed up. No doubt about it. They are the sole responsible party for determining flood zones in the United States. They effed up big time. But the idea that they just gave cover to the insurance companies is an F up times two. This is unconscionable. And it all comes back to the same thing. These people are getting paid as a courtesy of both federal tax dollars and your real estate taxes. You see the problem here?
I mean, I saw the problem there. I can see the problem here. When I go there, it takes a different level of problem, because when you were saying that, Mitch, no, you know, there are people that I'm worried are going to start coughing up blood. So they have no internet, or they have a Starlink, and they don't have the motivation, let alone the finances, to be fighting a lawsuit when they're still looking for their children in the debris that's now being paved over with a road, potentially a mulch farm right next to it. Are those mulch farms sifting through those piles with cadaver dogs? I don't know. I don't think so. At least they weren't when I was there. And the problem is FEMA said with their flood maps that these houses are not in a flood zone, because the FEMA maps indicate whether or not someone is at risk of flooding. So if FEMA is saying, you guys here in the mountain towns, there's no flood zone, there's no requirement of insurance, and then it floods from a hurricane, and they shift it from hurricane to flood, then to me, it would make sense that the fault lies, at least partially, with FEMA, because they are responsible not only for the recovery before, during, and after, but they're also responsible in that they have to report whether or not someone's in a flood zone. And the amazing thing here is some of these places that were destroyed, these are 10 generation deep. 10 generation deep. And so the other problem is this: some of these people aren't leaving because, yes, of pride, Mitch, and they shouldn't have to, because they've been there for 10 generations, but others can't leave because they cannot afford it.
Do you think that FEMA and the federal government, with all of its resources, because FEMA is under the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, couldn't it be that, hey, it's the Appalachians, too poor to care, move on?
I think that that's something that they can play off, but the reality, I think that the mountains are too important to allow them to own the land, especially given, and again, I don't want to be insensitive here or speculate too wildly here, but the sense that I got, Mitch, is they are waiting to take that land because there's rare minerals in the Appalachians. We know this. There are rare minerals there. We have, this is not speculation. That is an absolute fact. And so, you know, it is just, you got to go there. It's one of the most disheartening things. I'm still a little bit speechless, but are they too small to care? I think that they're so small that they can get away with it.
Too poor.
It's not that it's not that they don't care. They just appear to be so small that you can get away with absolute carnage and travesty. And that's what I see, sir.
When you go to a doctor, Travis, let's say it's a heart surgeon, that heart surgeon isn't allowed to make mistakes. That heart surgeon is getting paid to keep you alive. FEMA is getting paid to keep people alive. They failed. They failed before, during, and after. And then to that point, given what you've seen and shared in this series of videos, FEMA failed on every single assistance level of what they claim they do on their website, which all the public can go and see, FEMA.gov. For what purpose does FEMA exist, given the fact that they've got a catastrophic failure? Why do they exist? We've already discovered that they were sitting on excess of $9 billion that had their hands out to Congress for more money. Should it continue to exist, is my question for you.
Well, I would say they exist to be a slush fund for the elites and backdoor operations. But I mean, I got nothing for you, brother. I mean, they should absolutely be shut down. There should be a different type of organization that's completely transparent, that's actually effective. They need to be locked up. We have video, we have helicopter footage, we have drone footage. We went as deep as we can go. How could anyone that has watched those videos tell me that FEMA shouldn't be locked up, shut down, and whoever was responsible for this absolute disgrace needs to be jailed?
Yeah, I tripped over my tongue. I meant catastrophic, but I got a couple more questions for you on this topic. Should anybody depend on FEMA's assistance?
If I hope one thing that people saw with these videos is that if you depend on FEMA's assistance, you may die. You may die. And I say that because from the SAR teams themselves, their own testimony, they've told me this one particular recovery hit me where they got to this elderly person's house that they had passed away, that they were still on their toilet because they couldn't get to insulin. So that person could have been saved, Mitch. There are people that passed away that could have been saved if they would have taken the Appalachians seriously. If they would just take it seriously. And I'm talking, even if they were broke, which they're not, they have $9 billion. We saw that, although that money's probably not even there. It's probably spent somewhere else. If they would have just been honest, there's a need here. We need help. We don't know where it is going to come from. We're broke. That's another subject, but we need help. But instead of that, they go to Congress and say for the entire state of North Carolina, there's only 102, and everything you hear outside of that is misinformation or disinformation. They committed perjury. They committed a criminal act, in my opinion, by going to Congress and saying that there is only 102 confirmed deaths. Confirmed by who and how is my question.
Yeah. Is FEMA a credible government entity?
It's credible for the elites and for the whoever's pulling those strings, Mitch. That's evil. That may want that land. For whoever's using it as slush funds, it is highly effective. But for the American people, it's killing us. I believe that agency, the FEMA agency, is literally killing Americans because they have a false premise of safety that is not coming.
The ramifications of this horrific event will continue. And as we have new video and new evidence coming in, we will share it with this community. And Travis will continue to do the videos as more information shows up. He did leave a couple cameras behind to accomplish that task. He also created a new playlist on his channel, and that playlist features all these videos. So it's separated out, and that was done for a very specific reason. And that is to ask everybody of these viewers, push these videos to Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk and anybody who gives a damn about what's going on here, because the evidence is irrefutable. And it's going to take people of Elon's character to stand up and say, that's it, you're wiped out, your doors are closed, chain them, and let's move on. So with all that said, good to have you back. Tough video, but it needed to be done.
Yes, and I just wanted one last thing. Share the playlist, and I want you guys to understand that when you're going back to that playlist and it's titled Hurricane Helene Testimonies, because I wanted to stay out of it as much as I could. You guys, when I arrived, that was past week 6. So I want you to understand, although some people are saying they could expect such a lack of response week 1, maybe even week 2, that we're now in week 8. I arrived at week 6. And I don't know how anyone could get any other conclusion that those communities were abandoned.